I stood in my brother's marble-floored foyer, surrounded by moving boxes and the remnants of my marriage, when Micah's words hit me like a punch to the gut. You can't stay here forever, Poppy. You need to figure out your own life now. My name is Poppy, and 2 months ago, I walked in on my husband of 12 years having sex with his secretary on our kitchen counter. The same counter where I'd left him breakfast that morning. I thought you said I could stay as long as I needed, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The echo of my words in the high-ceilinged entryway made me feel smaller somehow. Micah ran his hand through his salt and pepper hair, a gesture so reminiscent of our father it made my chest ache. That was before your divorce was finalized. You're a single woman now, sis. What will people think? I wanted to remind him that half the down payment for this mansion came from my savings, but I bit my tongue. When he'd been struggling to secure the loan last year, I'd helped without hesitation. That's what family does. What people think, I repeated, disbelief coloring my voice. Since when do you care about that? His girlfriend Lexus appeared in the doorway, her dark eyes darting between us. Micah, maybe we should… Not now, babe. He cut her off, then turned back to me. Look, I'm trying to build something here. I've got clients coming over, business partners to impress. Having my divorced sister camping out in my guest room, it's not a good look. My phone buzzed. A text from Savannah. Coffee? You sound like you need it. I'll be out by the weekend, I said, my voice clipped. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, catching Lexus's sympathetic glance as I passed. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Savannah at our favorite coffee shop, wrapping my hands around a steaming latte. He actually said that? About what people would think? Savannah's outrage was exactly what I needed. Yep, apparently being divorced is contagious. I tried to laugh, but it came out more like a sob. The same brother who cried on your shoulder when his first business went bankrupt? The one you helped with this house? Savannah's dark eyes flashed. What happened to him? I stirred my coffee, watching the foam swirl. Success happened. Money happened. Sometimes I think he's trying so hard to be someone important. He's forgotten who he is. My phone lit up with Charles's name. My ex, probably calling about the last of his stuff still in storage. I declined the call. You know what the worst part is? I said, pushing the phone away. When I caught Charles cheating, Micah was the first person I called. He showed up at my house at midnight, helped me pack, told me everything would be okay. I swallowed hard. He promised he'd always have my back. Savannah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. What are you going to do? Find an apartment, I guess. Start over. The words tasted bitter. And let him get away with this? Savannah's eyebrows shot up. After everything you've done for him? What choice do I have? You always have choices, Poppy. You're just too nice to see them sometimes. Back at Micah's house that evening, I found Lexus alone in the kitchen making dinner. She glanced over her shoulder as I entered. I'm sorry about earlier, she said softly. I tried talking to him, but it's not your fault. I opened the fridge, grabbing a water bottle. He's changed, hasn't he? Lexus put down her knife, turning to face me. He's obsessed with this image he's trying to build. Sometimes I barely recognize him anymore. Join the club, I muttered. Poppy? Micah's voice boomed from his home office. Can you come here for a minute? I shared a look with Lexus before heading down the hallway. Micah sat behind his massive desk, looking every bit the successful businessman in his tailored shirt and designer watch. The watch I'd helped him buy for his 40th birthday. I've been thinking, he said, not looking up from his computer. You should be out by Wednesday. I've got important clients coming for dinner Thursday, and we'll need the guest room for their driver. I stood there, staring at my brother. This stranger wearing my brother's face. And something inside me snapped. Wednesday it is, I said quietly. But Micah? He finally looked up. Be careful what you wish for. His expression flickered with uncertainty for just a moment, but I was already walking away, my mind racing. Savannah was right. I did have choices. and it was time I started making them. The next morning, I methodically packed my life into cardboard boxes while Savannah perched on my bed, scrolling through apartment listings on her phone. "This one's not bad," she said. "2-bedroom, decent neighborhood." "And twice what I can afford right now," I finished, carefully wrapping a photo frame. It was an old picture of Micah and me at our father's funeral, arms around each other, holding each other up. I slipped it into the box without looking at it again. "You know what kills me?" I said, taping the box shut. "I have $500,000 tied up in this house, and I'm the one looking for a cramped apartment." Savannah's head snapped up. "Wait, what?" I hadn't told anyone about the money. It had been a private arrangement between siblings, sealed with trust rather than proper documentation. When Micah was trying to buy this place, he was short on the down payment. I helped him out. "Please tell me you got that in writing." Savannah's voice was sharp. I started to shake my head, then stopped. "Actually?" I dove for my laptop bag, pulling out an old leather portfolio I'd inherited from Dad. Inside were various documents he'd left us. His will, some insurance papers, and... Here it is. My hands trembled as I unfolded the document. Dad always insisted we put everything in writing, even between family. Especially between family. Savannah snatched the paper, her eyes widening as she read. "This is a legal agreement for co-ownership of any property purchased using these funds. Poppy, this makes you a 50% owner of this house." I finished. Dad made us both sign it before he died. He said it was to protect us both. Your father was a smart man. Savannah was already pulling out her phone. "My cousin Marcus is a real estate lawyer. You need to talk to him, now." 2 hours later, I sat in Marcus's downtown office, watching him review the document. "This is solid," he said finally, looking up at me. "Your father had this properly drafted. The language is clear. Any property purchased using these funds would be jointly owned." "Did Micah use the money?" I pulled out my phone, showing him the bank transfer records. "Every penny went into this house." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Then congratulations, you own half of your brother's dream home. What do I do now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "That depends," Marcus said, folding his hands on his desk. "What do you want?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Lexus. "Can we meet? Alone?" I met her at a small cafe 3 blocks from the house. She was already there, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "I found something," she said as soon as I sat down. I was helping Micah organize his office, and I saw the original mortgage documents. "Your name isn't on them." "No," I said. "It wouldn't be. The money was given as a gift, officially." "But it wasn't a gift, was it?" Lexus's eyes were intense. "He's been talking about selling the house. He's got some potential buyers coming next month." My stomach dropped. "Selling it?" "He says it's time to upgrade. There's a place in the hills he's had his eye on." She hesitated. "Poppy, he's not planning to pay you back." I pulled out the document from my father and slid it across the table. Lexus read it, her face growing pale. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Does he know about this?" "He signed it, but I don't think he remembers." I took the paper back. Or maybe he doesn't think I remember. My phone buzzed again. Micah. "Where are you? Need the guest room cleared today." "Today?" Lexus's eyes widened. "But he said Wednesday." I stood up, suddenly energized. "I need to make some calls. Thank you, Lexus, for everything." "What are you going to do?" I thought about Micah's smug face behind his expensive desk, about the way he'd dismissed me like I was nothing, about how he'd forgotten who we used to be to each other. "I'm going to remind my brother about karma," I said, and about Dad's favorite saying, "Always get it in writing." Back in my car, I called Marcus. "I want to file the paperwork," I said. "All of it. Today." "Are you sure? This will change everything with your brother." I looked up at Micah's house. Our house, gleaming in the afternoon sun. "He already changed everything. I'm just making it official." As I hung up, another text from Micah appeared. Called a cleaning service for tomorrow. Need the room empty by tonight. I smiled, thinking about the stack of legal documents about to land on his desk. Don't worry, big brother, I muttered. I'm not going anywhere. The courier arrived at exactly 4:30 p.m. I watched from my car across the street as he rang the doorbell and handed Micah a thick envelope. Even from this distance, I could see my brother's confident posture stiffen as he read the return address. Marcus Reynolds, attorney at law. My phone rang. Savannah, are you actually sitting outside your own house right now? Technically, it's only half my house, I said, watching Micah disappear inside with the envelope. And yes, I am. You're crazy, she laughed. But I love it. Has he opened it yet? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. Micah. I should take this, I told Savannah. Wish me luck. I switched calls. Hello, brother. What the hell is this? His voice trembled with rage. Some kind of joke? The document's pretty clear, Micah. Dad made sure of that. I kept my voice steady. Remember when he made us both sign it? You said it was unnecessary because we'd always look out for each other. That was 10 years ago. You can't seriously what? Expect you to honor a legal agreement? Expect you to treat me like family? I watched the front door slam open as he stormed out, phone to his ear, scanning the street. I started my car. By the way, I won't be out by tonight. Or Wednesday. Or ever, actually. I think I'll stay in my half of the house. Your half? He spotted my car and started walking toward it. You're delusional. I'm calling my lawyer. Good idea. Have them look at the property records while you're at it. Marcus filed the paperwork this morning. I pulled away from the curb as Micah reached it, watching in my rearview mirror as he stood there, getting smaller and smaller. An hour later, I sat in Marcus's office again, this time with Lexus. He's furious, she said, wringing her hands. I've never seen him like this. He threw his phone across the room. Marcus spread out several documents on his desk. Let him be furious. The law is clear. The agreement is binding and the money trail is documented. Poppy owns 50% of that property. What happens now? I asked. Well, he can't sell without your consent. Can't take out additional loans against it either. And Marcus smiled slightly. He can't evict you. My phone lit up with a text from our mother, Caroline. Your brother just called me, screaming about some document your father left. What's going on? I hadn't spoken to Caroline in months. She'd sided with Charles during the divorce, saying I should have tried harder to make it work. I should call her, I said, standing up. Wait. Lexus grabbed my arm. There's something else you should know. Those buyers coming next month? They're not just buyers. Micah's been planning to turn the house into a corporate retreat center. He's got investors lined up and everything. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. Without disclosing co-ownership? That's fraud. He thought I'd never find out about the agreement, I said. Or that I'd be too nice to use it. My phone buzzed again. A text from Micah. My lawyer wants to meet. Tomorrow? 10 a.m. Don't go alone, Marcus warned. In fact, don't go at all. Let me handle it. I thought about all the times I'd backed down, played nice, kept the peace. About Charles's smirking face when he'd told me I was too predictable. About Micah's dismissive wave when he'd told me to leave. No, I said. I want to be there. I want to see his face when he realizes what's happening. Poppy, Lexus started. It's not about revenge. I cut her off. It's about respect, about consequences, about family meaning something more than just a convenient arrangement. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll set up the meeting here. Neutral ground. That evening, I drove back to the house. Micah's car was gone, but lights blazed in every window. I used my key, my legal right now, and walked in. The cleaning service had been through. The guest room was spotless, sterile, empty. I set my bag down and pulled out the old photo of Micah and me at Dad's funeral. You were right, Dad, I whispered, running my finger along the frame. Always get it in writing. My phone buzzed one last time. Caroline. I'm coming into town. We need to talk. All of us. I placed the photo on the nightstand and sat on the bed. My bed now. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and arguments, family drama, and hard conversations. But tonight, in this room that my brother had tried to take from me, I finally felt something I hadn't felt since walking in on Charles and his secretary. I felt powerful. Marcus's office felt colder than usual as I sat across from Micah and his lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Rita, who hadn't stopped scowling since she walked in. This is ridiculous, Micah said, tossing the agreement onto the conference table. It was a different time, a different situation. Poppy gave me that money as a gift. Actually, Marcus slid forward a stack of papers. Your sister never signed a gift declaration. The only document both parties signed was this co-ownership agreement. Rita leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. My client is prepared to offer a buyout. No. The word came out stronger than I'd expected. Be reasonable, Micah snapped. I'll give you your money back with interest. Like you were planning to do when you sold the house to those investors? I watched his face pale. Yeah, Lexus told me about your corporate retreat plans. Rita's scowl deepened. Miss, if you're attempting to blackmail... Blackmail? I laughed. I'm just stating facts. My brother tried to sell property he only half owns without disclosing that fact to investors. That's fraud, isn't it, Marcus? Marcus nodded slowly. It would be, yes. Quite serious, actually. The door opened and Caroline walked in, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible. Mom? Micah stood up. What are you doing here? Sitting down with both my children and figuring out what the hell happened to them. She took a seat at the head of the table. When did you two stop being family and start being enemies? Ask her. Micah pointed at me. She's the one threatening legal action. After you tried to throw me out on the street, I shot back. After I helped you buy that house, after I supported you through everything. Enough. Caroline's voice cracked like a whip. Micah, is what your sister's saying true? Did you try to evict her? It's my house, he muttered. Half your house. Marcus corrected quietly. My phone buzzed. A text from Savannah. How's it going? Need backup? Before I could respond, Rita cleared her throat. Perhaps we could discuss a compromise. Joint ownership with clear terms about usage and eventual sale. No sale, I said firmly. I'm not selling my share. You can't just move in and... Actually, she can, Marcus interrupted. That's exactly what co-ownership means. Micah slumped in his chair. This is insane. I have plans for that property. Investments lined up. Should have thought about that before trying to kick me out, I said. Or before forgetting who helped you get that house in the first place. Caroline reached into her bag and pulled out an old envelope. I found this in your father's things. He left instructions to give it to you both if you ever ended up like this. She handed us each a letter. I opened mine with trembling fingers. Dad's familiar handwriting filled the page. If you're reading this, you've forgotten what matters most. Money comes and goes, but family is forever. The agreement I made you sign wasn't just about property. It was about trust, about having each other's backs. Don't let pride destroy what matters most. I looked up to see Micah staring at his own letter. His face softened for the first time today. I never wanted this, I said quietly. I just wanted my brother back. The room fell silent. Rita shuffled her papers uncomfortably while Marcus watched us carefully. The investors are coming next week, Micah finally said. I can't just cancel. Then don't. I leaned forward. Show them the property, but tell them the truth. That it's co-owned and any deals will need both owners' approval. And then what? Then we talk, like family, about what this house means to both of us. Caroline stood up. You're both coming to dinner tonight. No lawyers, no documents, Just family trying to find their way back to each other. I have plans, Micah started. Cancel them. Caroline cut him off. Some things are more important than business, son. Your father knew that. It's time you remembered it, too. As we filed out of Marcus's office, Lexis was waiting in the lobby. She took one look at Micah's face and wrapped her arms around him. Figure it out? She asked. Working on it. He mumbled into her shoulder. I watched them, remembering how Micah used to hug me like that when I was hurting. Somewhere under all his ambition and pride, that brother still existed. I just had to find him again. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Charles. Heard about the house situation. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? I deleted the message without responding. This wasn't about karma or revenge anymore. It was about something much more important. It was about finding our way home. Caroline's kitchen hadn't changed in 20 years. The same yellow curtains, the same worn wooden table where Micah and I had done our homework, fought over breakfast, and shared our dreams. You're both terrible cooks, Caroline said, stirring a pot of her famous pasta sauce. Just like your father. That man could burn water. Remember when he tried to make Christmas dinner? I smiled despite myself. The turkey was still frozen in the middle. We had Chinese takeout. Micah added softly. It was the first thing he'd said since we arrived. Caroline set 3 plates on the table. Eat, then we talk. The silence as we ate was heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Caroline put down her fork. Your father would be heartbroken to see you like this. Dad's not here, Micah said sharply. He's not here to see how hard I've worked, what I've built. What we built, I corrected. Together. Fine. Micah slammed his hand on the table, making the plates rattle. You helped with the house, but I'm the one who turned it into something valuable. I'm the one who made the connections, found the investors, while treating me like I was nothing. My voice cracked. I lost everything, Micah. My marriage, my home. You were all I had left, and you threw me away like I was garbage. I didn't. He stopped, running his hands through his hair. I was trying to protect my investment. Investment? Caroline's voice was ice. Is that what family is to you now? An investment? You don't understand. Micah stood up, pacing. These investors, they're not just anyone. They're powerful people. They can make or break careers. I needed everything to be perfect. And your divorced sister didn't fit that perfect image? I asked. No. Yes. I don't know. He collapsed back into his chair. Everything was finally falling into place. The house, the business, Lexis. I couldn't risk anything going wrong. So you risked losing your sister instead? Caroline shook her head. There's something you both need to know about your father's last days. She disappeared into her bedroom and returned with a small box. Inside was a hospital bracelet and a handwritten note. The night before he died, Caroline said, your father made me promise something. He knew you two were different. Micah with his ambition, Poppy with her heart. He worried you'd drift apart, that money would come between you. That's why he made us sign the agreement. I realized. Yes, but it wasn't just about the money. He wanted to make sure you'd always need each other, that you couldn't succeed without working together. Micah picked up the note, reading it silently. His hands started shaking. What does it say? I asked. Tell them I'm sorry. Micah read aloud. Sorry I won't be there to keep them together, but remind them that they're stronger together than they ever were apart. The kitchen fell silent except for the soft ticking of the old clock above the stove. You know what's funny? I said finally. When Charles cheated on me, the first person I thought of wasn't him, or my friends, or even Mom. It was you, Micah, because you were always the one who protected me. Until I didn't. His voice was barely a whisper. The investors are coming next week, I said. Show me the plans. Help me understand your vision. Maybe we can find a way to make it work. Together. You'd do that? After everything? I'm not giving up my half of the house, I said firmly. But I'm not giving up on my brother either. Caroline stood up, gathering the plates. Your father also said something else that last night. He said his biggest regret wasn't dying. It was knowing he wouldn't see how amazing his children would become together. Micah's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then turned it off completely. The investors can wait. We have more important things to figure out. Like how you're going to make up for being such a terrible brother. I managed a small smile. Like how we're going to honor Dad's legacy, he corrected. Both of us. As we helped Caroline clean up, moving around the kitchen in the familiar dance of family, I felt something shift. The house wasn't just a property anymore. It was a bridge, a way back to each other. My phone lit up with a text from Lexus. How's it going? I looked at Micah, who was drying dishes and actually smiling for the first time in weeks, and typed back, We're finding our way home. A corporate wellness center? I stared at the blueprint spread across the dining room table. That's your big plan for our house? Not just wellness. Micah pointed to different areas of the layout. Think exclusive executive retreats, high-end meditation spaces, private therapy rooms. There's a huge market for stressed-out CEOs looking for luxury relaxation. Lexus set down 3 cups of coffee. Show her the projection numbers. Micah slid over a spreadsheet. My eyes widened at the figures. These are impressive. But, Micah prompted, reading my expression, but it's also our home. I traced the outline of what was currently my bedroom. Where would we live? We could convert the east wing into private quarters, Lexus suggested. Keep it separate from the business side. My phone buzzed. Savannah. How's the big meeting with the Golden Boy going? Later, I texted back, then looked up at Micah. The investors arrive tomorrow. What exactly are you going to tell them? The truth, he said, surprising me. That the property is co-owned and any decisions need both our approval. And if they walk? Then they walk. He ran his hand through his hair. Look, I've been thinking about what Mom said, about Dad's letter. Maybe I got too caught up in the business side of things. Lexus snorted. Maybe? Okay, definitely. He amended. But this could be good for both of us. We could build something together, like Dad wanted. The doorbell rang. Lexus went to answer it, returning with Caroline and... Charles? What the hell is he doing here? Micah stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. Charles held up his hands. I came to talk business. Get out, Micah and I said simultaneously. Hear him out, Caroline said. Please. I looked at my mother. You brought him here? He has information about your investors, she said. Information you need to hear. Charles stepped forward, his familiar cologne making my stomach turn. Those investors you're meeting tomorrow? They're not what they seem. What are you talking about? Micah demanded. They're corporate raiders, Charles said. They target family-owned properties, find legal loopholes to force sales. I've seen them do it before. How do you know this? I asked. Because they approached me first, he admitted. Wanted inside information about your situation, about the co-ownership agreement. Micah's face darkened. And you told them? No, Charles said quietly. Whatever happened between Poppy and me, I couldn't do that to her. To either of you. I sat down hard, my legs shaky. Why are you really here, Charles? Believe it or not, to make things right. At least a little. He pulled out a folder. Here's everything I have on them. Their previous deals, their tactics. Use it. Micah snatched the folder, flipping through it. His face grew progressively paler. They've done this 6 times in the last year, he said. Find family-owned properties, exploit internal conflicts. Like a brother and sister fighting over ownership. I finished. Lexus peered over Micah's shoulder at the documents. Look at the fine print in their standard contract. They could force a sale within 6 months. You need to cancel the meeting, Charles said. No, I stood up. We need to show them exactly who they're dealing with. Micah looked at me. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to show them what happens when someone tries to come between family. Charles shifted uncomfortably. I should go. Thank you, I said, surprising myself, for warning us. He nodded once and left, Caroline following after a quick hug for each of us. So, Lexus said into the silence, what's the plan? I looked at the blueprints, then at my brother. Remember how we used to team up against the bullies in school? A slow smile spread across Micah's face. You want to play them at their own game? Better. I pulled out my phone. I want to call Marcus and Rita. Get them both here tonight. We're going to create an ironclad partnership agreement that those raiders can't touch. And then? Lexus asked. Then we show them what happens when they try to mess with the Bennett siblings. Micah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Together? Together, I agreed. Just like Dad wanted. As Micah made the calls to our lawyers, I looked around at our house. Not his, not mine, but ours. Tomorrow, we'd face those investors as a united front. But tonight, we'd rebuild what mattered most. Our family. My phone lit up with a final text from Savannah. Need backup tomorrow? I smiled and replied, no, I've already got all the backup I need. The investors arrived in sleek black cars at exactly 10 a.m. 3 men and 1 woman, all wearing expressions that probably hadn't changed since their last hostile takeover. Welcome to our home, Micah and I said in unison, standing shoulder to shoulder in the foyer. The lead investor, Robert, raised an eyebrow. Our? Oh, didn't your research team mention? I smiled sweetly. I'm Micah's sister and co-owner. Shall we move to the conference room? They followed us into what used to be the formal dining room, now transformed into a meeting space. Marcus and Rita sat quietly at opposite ends of the table, a united front of legal representation. Before we begin, the female investor, Amanda, opened her briefcase. We have some preliminary paperwork. Actually, Micah interrupted, we have our own documentation to discuss first. He slid copies of a bound document across the table. Our partnership agreement. Robert barely glanced at it. We were under the impression this property was solely owned by Micah. Common mistake, I said. One that could have led to some unfortunate legal complications. Good thing we cleared that up early, right? The other 2 investors, who hadn't introduced themselves, exchanged glances. Perhaps, Amanda said smoothly, we should discuss our vision for this property. Of course. Micah stood up. But first, coffee? Lexus? Lexus entered with a tray of coffee and pastries, setting them down just as Caroline walked in. Oh, I'm sorry, she said, perfectly timed. I didn't realize you had a meeting. I just dropped by to discuss the family trust's interest in the property. Robert's jaw tightened. Family trust? Mom's our financial advisor, I explained, watching their faces fall. She helps manage our family's real estate portfolio, which is extensive, Caroline added, sitting down. Though this property holds special sentimental value. My late husband made sure of that. Marcus cleared his throat. Perhaps we should discuss the specific terms of your proposal? Amanda opened another folder. We're prepared to offer significantly above market value. Interesting, I cut in, because we had our own proposal in mind. I nodded to Micah. He clicked a remote, bringing up our wellness center plans on the wall screen. We're not looking to sell. We're looking for investors in this concept. Minority investors. With no controlling interest, Rita added helpfully. Robert's face reddened. This isn't what we discussed. No, Micah agreed. It's better. A guaranteed 15% return on investment with none of the legal complications of trying to force a sale through loopholes or family conflicts. Amanda's professional mask slipped. I don't know what you're implying. We're not implying anything, I said, sliding forward the folder Charles had provided. We're stating facts, like your company's interesting pattern of acquiring family properties through, let's call them aggressive tactics. The silent investors finally spoke up. This meeting is over. Is it? Caroline asked. Because I've already shared your company's history with my extensive network of family-owned businesses in the area. They found it fascinating. Robert stood up, straightening his tie. You clearly have no interest in a legitimate business deal. On the contrary, Micah said, we're offering you one. Just not the kind where you get to tear apart a family legacy. Your choice, I added. Legitimate investment opportunity or a very public exposure of your business practices. My friend Savannah is a business journalist, by the way. She's very interested in corporate ethics stories. The room fell silent except for the soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. The one Dad had restored himself. Amanda closed her briefcase. We'll be in touch. No, I said firmly. You won't. They filed out, their expensive shoes clicking on the marble floor. As soon as the door closed, Lexus burst out laughing. Their faces, she gasped, when Caroline walked in. Marcus gathered his papers. I don't think they'll be bothering you again. But others might, Rita warned. You should be prepared. We are, Micah said, looking at me. We're stronger together, right? Caroline hugged us both. Your father would be so proud. After the lawyers left, Micah, Lexus, and I stood in the foyer looking around at our home, really seeing it for the first time in weeks. So, Lexus said, about that wellness center idea? It's actually not bad, I admitted, with some modifications. Like what? Micah asked. Like making sure it helps people who really need it, not just rich executives. Dad would have liked that. Micah nodded slowly. A family legacy worth building. My phone buzzed. Savannah. How'd it go with the corporate vultures? I looked at my brother, who was already sketching new ideas on a napkin, and typed back, they never stood a chance against the Bennett siblings. I can't believe you're making me do this, Micah grumbled, hauling another box from the moving truck. You lost the coin toss, I reminded him. Besides, it was your idea to convert this wing into the residential section. We were transforming the east wing of our house into a home for families going through difficult transitions. Divorce, job loss, medical crises. The wellness center would occupy the west wing, helping fund the charitable side of our venture. Where do you want these brochures? Lexus called from the doorway. Reception area. Micah and I answered simultaneously, then shared a laugh. My phone rang. Charles. Hey, I answered, stepping into the hallway. Thanks again for that reference letter for our nonprofit status. Least I could do, he said. Listen, I'm moving to Seattle next month. Wanted you to hear it from me. Good luck, I said, and meant it. The anger that had once burned so hot had cooled into something like indifference. You too, Poppy. You deserve it. I hung up just as Caroline arrived with lunch for the moving crew. The contractors finished the meditation garden, she announced. Come see? We followed her outside to what used to be Micah's prized putting green. Now it was a serene space with a small fountain, the sound of running water mixing with wind chimes. Dad would have loved this, Micah said softly. He does love it, Caroline corrected, pointing to a small bronze plaque near the fountain. The Thomas Bennett Memorial Garden. I traced the letters with my finger, feeling the raised metal under my skin. Speaking of Dad, Micah cleared his throat. I found something in his old files. He pulled out a worn envelope. It's his original business plan for this place, from 20 years ago. I took the papers, yellowed with age. The sketches were rough but unmistakable. A community center, a healing space, a place for people to rebuild their lives. He never told us, I whispered, because he wanted us to find our own way here, Caroline said. Together. Savannah's car pulled up, trunk loaded with donated supplies. Where's my favorite reformed jerk of a brother-in-law? Still reforming, Micah called back, grinning. The two had developed an unlikely friendship over the past weeks. The local news wants to do a story on the center, Savannah said, unloading boxes. Something about siblings turning family drama into community service. No press, Micah and I said together. Still weird when they do that, Lex's stage whispered to Savannah. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity. By sunset, we stood in the newly furnished common room, surrounded by the evidence of our shared vision. First family moves in tomorrow, I said, straightening a picture frame. The old photo of Micah and me at Dad's funeral, now joined by a new one of us at the center's groundbreaking. Are we ready? Micah asked. No, I smiled, but we'll figure it out together. Like everything else? He teased. Like everything else. Caroline appeared with a bottle of champagne and glasses. A toast, she said, pouring. To second chances. To family, Lexis added. To Dad, Micah said quietly. To home, I finished. As we clinked glasses, I looked around at this space we'd created. Not just a house anymore, but a testament to what family could be, what broken things could become when pieced back together with love and understanding. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Marcus. Nonprofit status approved. Congratulations. It's official, I announced. The Bennett Family Center is real. Micah wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Remember when I tried to kick you out? Remember when I legally outmaneuvered you? Remember when you both stopped being idiots? Lexis chimed in. We all laughed, the sound echoing through rooms that would soon be filled with other families finding their way back to each other. You know what's funny? I said. When Charles cheated on me, I thought my life was over. But it was just beginning. When you showed up at my door that night, Micah added, I thought I was doing you a favor. Turns out you were saving me from myself. Caroline raised her glass again. To new beginnings. Outside, the fountain burbled in Dad's garden, wind chimes singing in the evening breeze. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new families, new chances to help others heal. But tonight, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. We did good, sis, Micah said softly. I squeezed his hand. We did good, bro. And in the growing darkness, our house, our home, glowed with warmth and possibility. A beacon of hope for others who needed to find their way back home.
In a quiet residential area of Greenwich, the early summer sunlight gently illuminated the white two-story houses. Among them, the Wilson family's garden was particularly well-maintained, with English roses blooming elegantly. This house, purchased 2 years ago, was our family's pride, a dream home that my husband Michael had acquired through his successive promotions. From the large living room window of this $3 million house, I watched my son Aiden practicing baseball in the garden. With an expression too serious for a 6-year-old, he was playing catch with his father Michael. The living room, surrounded by classic modern interiors, had a calm atmosphere with gray and white tones, and all the furniture was uniformly from designer brands. Mom, did you see that? Wasn't that straight pitch amazing? Aiden burst into the living room with a beaming smile. His forehead was slightly damp with sweat. People often say his light brown hair and large eyes resemble mine. Yes, it was wonderful. But let's take a shower first. We need to get ready before Grandma arrives, I said, gently stroking my son's head. As a luxury real estate agent, I'm particularly conscious of maintaining a clean appearance. Today is Sunday, our weekly family meeting day. My mother-in-law Barbara was someone who valued punctuality. True to her former position as a mathematics teacher at Greenwich High School, her perfectionist nature was reflected in her appearance: perfectly set gray short hair, elegant Ralph Lauren and Burberry clothing, and understated Tiffany accessories. She exuded the air of a typical upper-class widow. However, I had begun to sense the true nature lurking beneath that elegant exterior. My experience majoring in business administration in college had taught me the importance of seeing through people's facades. What particularly concerned me was her attitude toward Aiden. While she appeared friendly on the surface, there was something cold in her gaze. She showered unlimited affection on her daughter Caroline's children, Emma and Lily, but seemed to keep her distance from Aiden. The price difference in Christmas presents was blatant. "Jennifer, what's for dinner tonight?" My husband's voice came from behind. Michael, who had majored in computer science at Stanford University and now worked as a middle manager at a Silicon Valley tech company, always played baseball with Aiden on holidays. It was their precious father-son time. Grilled salmon with seasonal organic vegetables. Because of Aiden's egg allergy, I've specially prepared a vegan chocolate cake for dessert. I found a new recipe at Whole Foods. While I work as a luxury real estate agent, I always make time to spend weekends with family. Cooking is my hobby, and I make an effort to prepare healthy meals using organic ingredients. Among Greenwich's upper-class families, we might be one with relatively new values. Mom, Aiden, who had finished his shower and changed into a new polo Ralph Lauren shirt, looked at me somewhat hesitantly. "What is it? Will Grandma avoid me today too?" In her recent Instagram photo, I was the only one not included. That question made my heart ache. A 6-year-old child was aware of being ostracized by his grandmother. In family photos posted on social media, Aiden was always placed at the edge or deliberately excluded. He was increasingly being left out of family events. At the recent Memorial Day barbecue party, Barbara had tried to isolate Aiden in the children's room. "It's okay. Mom and Dad are here for you," I answered with a strong smile. But how long could I continue to overlook this situation? I sighed deeply while arranging my long brown hair. Greenwich Country Club's private room. In front of the marble fireplace, Aiden was supposed to celebrate his 6th birthday. I had set aside a budget of $30,000 and hired a professional party planner to prepare everything perfectly. Champagne gold tablecloths, decorations featuring Yankees players, and a custom baseball cake. Everything was prepared for my son's special day. Barbara, at least today. I could see Michael confronting his mother in a low voice. Beside him, Aiden awkwardly handled his new baseball glove. Barbara's birthday present was clearly a cheap item from a discount store. 2 weeks earlier, at granddaughter Emma's birthday party, Barbara had given her a custom American Girl doll with a complete wardrobe set. The price must have easily exceeded $1,000. Barbara had posted Emma's present on social media with the caption, "To my beloved granddaughter. Mom, this glove." Aiden's voice trembled. My baseball-loving son had reached the age where he could tell the quality of equipment. My heart clenched at his expression when he opened the present. "It's okay. We'll go to the sports shop with Daddy later and pick out a new one," I said quietly while embracing my son. In the corner of the room, Caroline's children were playing with their new iPads, also presents from Barbara. Memorial Day weekend. During the family gathering at Barbara's mansion, the annual family photo shoot took place. A renowned portrait photographer had been capturing the Wilson family's photos for 3 generations. White roses bloomed abundantly in the garden, creating a scene like something from a movie. "Aiden, move a little more to the edge," Barbara instructed the photographer. She deliberately pushed Aiden to the side, positioning Caroline's family in the center instead. The photographer showed a confused expression but couldn't defy the client's wishes. I squeezed my son's hand tightly. That night, Barbara posted the family photo on Instagram. However, Aiden wasn't in it. The photo had been cleverly cropped, completely cutting out our son. Barbara's account, with its many followers, quickly received comments like, "What a lovely family photo." I quietly cried while staring at my smartphone screen. In early July, the situation worsened at a pool party at Barbara's home. The Connecticut summer sun reflected blindingly off the pool's surface. "Aiden, don't get in the pool. It's water quality testing day." Barbara excluded only Aiden while the other grandchildren swam happily. The smile disappeared from my son's face. I quietly watched this scene from a deck chair. High-end surveillance cameras recorded everything. But Grandma, Emma, and Lily are. They're different. They know how to use the pool properly. Barbara's words carried clear discriminatory intent. At that moment, tears glistened in Aiden's eyes. I realized the gravity of the situation when I received an email from Aiden's teacher, Mrs. Watson. A message from a teacher at Greenwich's most highly regarded public elementary school carried weight. "I'm concerned about Aiden's recent behavior. He's spending more time alone during breaks and barely eating lunch. His expression particularly clouds over when family topics come up." That night, what I witnessed in my son's room broke my heart. In the light spilling from the study, Aiden was crying quietly alone. "Mom, am I a bad kid? Why only me?" Aiden was curled up small in his pajamas. Family photos were scattered on the bed. In all of them, Aiden was either pushed to the edge or completely missing. The baseball trophy on his nightstand cast a shadow in the moonlight. "No, Aiden. You're a wonderful child." I held my son tightly. His small body trembled slightly. Michael came into the room, and the three of us embraced for a long time. From that day on, I began recording everything. Photos taken with a high-end smartphone, voice memos recording conversations, and detailed diary entries. These were stored for the day they might be needed. I created a folder called Records in Google Drive. Michael seemed to be thinking the same thing. Evidence of Barbara's discriminatory behavior was steadily collected in his work cloud storage. When he consulted a lawyer friend, he was advised to continue keeping records in case they're needed. The situation became decisive on the last Sunday in August. At a dinner party at Barbara's house. On the terrace, the twilight sky was stained deep purple. A full course of French cuisine was laid out on the table. However, Barbara deliberately prepared dishes containing eggs for Aiden's meal. "Oh my, I forgot about Aiden's. What was it?" "His allergy," Barbara said with a smirk, making an insincere apology. Across the table, Caroline shifted uncomfortably. At that moment, something definitively changed within me. I intuitively knew that everything had to change during the family trip planned for the following week. In the lobby of the Breakers, a luxury resort hotel in Newport, Rhode Island. The setting sun's light streamed across the marble floor reminiscent of a 19th-century European palace. Massive chandeliers hung gracefully from the ceiling, and plants were perfectly arranged in every corner. It was the first day of the Wilson family's annual summer trip. I was heading to the front desk while holding my son's hand. "Let me confirm your reservation," the young front desk staff member began in a polite tone. Behind them, Barbara wore a smug expression. "Yes, the Wilson party. Rooms for Mrs. Barbara, Mr. George, Miss Caroline and her 2 children, and Mr. Michael and his wife." My spine froze. Aiden's name wasn't called. What about Aiden's reservation? Isn't there a room reservation for my son? My voice trembled slightly. Michael stood beside me, his face tense. Barbara stepped forward and smirked. Her expression contained 6 years of hatred condensed into one moment. "That child isn't worthy of being with us. Only my daughter's children are my true grandchildren." The air in the lobby froze. Caroline gasped, and Emma and Lily wore worried expressions. The front desk staff was clearly confused. My cheeks grew hot, and my hands began to shake. I felt tears welling up in my eyes but took a deep breath to calm myself. Aiden's small hand squeezed tightly in mine. "Mom." Aiden's voice trembled softly. For 6 years, I had endured my mother-in-law's behavior. To maintain superficial family peace, to show respect for my husband's mother. But that was over now. Slowly turning toward Aiden, I embraced my son gently. In that warmth, I poured all my love and determination. "It's okay, Aiden. We have somewhere better to be." Michael nodded silently. His eyes held a determination I'd never seen before. "I apologize. We'll be canceling our reservation," I told the front desk staff. Strength had returned to my voice. "Jennifer." "Wait." Barbara's voice echoed behind us. But we didn't look back. Taking Aiden's hand, we left the lobby with dignified steps. Our footsteps on the luxury marble floor echoed like a quiet resolution. Outside, the twilight sea glowed golden. As we got into the taxi, Aiden's expression brightened. "Mom, can we go to the aquarium today?" "Of course. From today on, let's make our own new memories," I answered while stroking my son's head. Just then, my mobile phone started ringing. It was Barbara calling. The screen already showed more than 10 missed calls. Messages were arriving one after another. "Where are you? Come back immediately. Are you trying to embarrass me? Do you have any idea how difficult it was to make these hotel reservations? Everyone is waiting." I quietly rejected the call and turned off the phone. Michael was doing the same. The coastal line visible from the taxi window glowed beautifully, as if blessing the beginning of our new life. "Hey, Mom," Aiden spoke in a small voice. "This is the first time." "The first time?" "Yes." The first time Mom stood up for me in front of Grandma. Those words made tears flow from my eyes. Michael's hand was gently placed on my shoulder. The taxi continued quietly through the streets of Newport. In the opposite direction from the luxury hotel where Barbara was. This was the path we had chosen. There was no turning back. 1 week after the incident at the Newport Hotel, the town of Greenwich appeared to maintain its peaceful daily life. However, a fierce storm was raging within the Wilson family. In the living room of Barbara's mansion, George Wilson violently threw his mobile phone onto the expensive Persian rug. Barbara's husband and Michael's father, known for his usually mild temperament, now had a face red with anger. "Barbara, what have you done?" George's voice echoed through the high-ceilinged living room. 6 years. You've been discriminating against our grandchild for 6 years. Barbara remained seated on the luxury sofa, picking up a teacup stained with lipstick. "I was just making a realistic judgment. Don't Caroline's children have more potential?" Potential? By what criteria are you judging a 6-year-old child's potential? George had just finished canceling his appointment with his lawyer. "I'm considering divorce. And the division of assets won't be in your favor." At those words, Barbara's expression finally froze. In Greenwich's upper society, divorce was still taboo. Especially for someone like her, a pillar of social circles. Meanwhile, at Caroline's house, a different kind of crisis was unfolding. In a quiet corner of the luxury residential area, 10-year-old Emma and 8-year-old Lily confronted their mother. "Mom, why didn't you help Aiden?" Tears glistened in Emma's eyes. "We always knew that Grandma was being mean to Aiden. Aiden is our cousin. He's important family." Lily's voice trembled. "I don't want to go to Grandma's house anymore." Caroline leaned against the expensive kitchen counter, at a loss for words. While she herself had doubts about her mother's behavior, she hadn't been able to openly oppose it. But now, her children's pure sense of justice was stirring her heart. At a Starbucks near Greenwich Station, Michael was having his final conversation with his mother. The surrounding bustle seemed to mask this crucial dialogue. "That's enough, Mother." Michael's voice was quiet but filled with strong will. "This means cutting ties. I want you to stay away from Aiden completely from now on." "Michael, I don't want to hear the reasons. I don't want to know why you kept hurting my son for 6 years." An unopened latte sat on the Starbucks table. "Your need for control and prejudice destroyed this family." Barbara's face contorted beneath her perfectly applied makeup. "I just wanted the best family. Caroline's children carry my blood. But Aiden is my son. No further explanation is needed." Michael quietly stood up. "Goodbye, Mother." That evening, we held a family meeting in our dining room. 6 years' worth of evidence was spread across the table. Photos, audio recordings, social media post records, and the letter of concern from Aiden's teacher. Caroline had also joined with her children. Her husband David had made it clear he supported his wife and children. This is the evidence we've collected, I began quietly. Everything about Barbara's discriminatory behavior is recorded here. I can't believe it. Caroline picked up a photo. What terrible things I've overlooked. Emma and Lily sat beside Aidan. The three children were quietly playing with Lego blocks amid the adults' heavy conversation. That scene somehow gave us hope. What are we going to do now? Caroline asked anxiously. Legal measures are already prepared, Michael answered. We'll seek court intervention if necessary. We'll fight as far as we need to protect Aidan. We're on Aidan's side. Emma suddenly exclaimed. Grandma is wrong. Aidan didn't do anything wrong. Those words brought tears to the eyes of all the adults in the room. A 10-year-old girl's pure sense of justice. It reminded us of something we had almost lost. Thank you, everyone, Aidan said in a small voice. I'm not scared anymore. As the night deepened, we began to see the shape of a new family. One based not just on blood ties, but on love and justice, a family in the truest sense. The next day, Barbara sat alone in her dark study at home. In her hands were divorce mediation papers. On the table, a mobile phone piled with unread messages. And on the wall, family photos with Aidan cropped out. Her perfect life was beginning to crumble due to her own prejudice. And for the first time, she was beginning to understand that the responsibility was entirely her own. Seated in her expensive chair, Barbara quietly cried. The stars shone in Greenwich's summer night sky. But she no longer had a family to share its beauty with. 1 year later, we were having a barbecue party in our garden in Greenwich. 7-year-old Aidan was playing with a new baseball set alongside his cousins Emma and Lily. Children's laughter bounced across the lawn. Home run! Aidan's joyful voice rang out. He had grown taller and his expression had brightened. Weekly therapy sessions and family love had gradually healed his emotional wounds. Caroline sat down beside me and offered me iced tea. Seeing Aidan smile, I feel again that our decision wasn't wrong. I nodded silently. Over this past year, we lost many things but gained new ones. While our relationship with Barbara was completely severed, we gained family bonds in the truest sense. Michael changed jobs, moving to a company that offered more flexible working arrangements. He always spends weekends with family and never misses Aidan's baseball games. The pressure that once showed on his face has disappeared. Jennifer, look, Michael called me. He showed me his phone screen. It was the digital edition of the Greenwich Times. Barbara's name caught my eye. Board member resigns from prestigious private school. Barbara Wilson's sudden decision shocks local community. Barbara now lives alone in a small apartment on Manhattan's Upper East Side. Her divorce from George was finalized, and she voluntarily withdrew from Greenwich's social circles. Her former friends began avoiding association with her. Her perfect life had crumbled. How's Grandma doing lately? I heard Emma asking her mother Caroline. The children sometimes worry about Barbara. She's going to therapy, Caroline answered quietly. She's trying to face her mistakes. Last week, a long letter arrived from Barbara. Written in meticulous handwriting across 10 pages of stationery were words of regret and apology. I tried to create a perfect family and ended up destroying something precious. Aiden should have been loved just like my biological grandchildren, but my prejudice and arrogance hurt his pure heart. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to acknowledge my mistakes and spend my remaining life making amends. After reading the letter, we had a long discussion. We decided to consider reuniting with Barbara, albeit with conditions. It would start with supervised, brief meetings, proceeding cautiously with guidance from Aiden's psychological counselor. "Mom, look." Aiden came running over. In his hands was a baseball scorecard. Our team won. I embraced my son. In that warmth, there was no trace of past suffering. Only hope for the future remained. "Dad, let's practice pitching next." Aiden ran toward Michael. Watching him, Caroline murmured, "Maybe children are wiser than us adults. They instinctively know the importance of letting go of hatred." In one corner of the garden, David was grilling meat on a new barbecue grill. Smoke rose toward the twilight sky. Children's cheers, adults' peaceful conversation, and gentle breeze. We wanted to carefully preserve this moment of tranquility. Michael put his arm around my shoulder. "Happy?" "Yes, very much," I answered with a smile. Barbara's final letter had included these words. "Perhaps there's no such thing as a perfect family. True family might be about understanding and forgiving each other." We were still on that journey. But we were definitely moving forward. Aiden's smile was proof of that. The Greenwich twilight seemed more beautiful than ever. Trees in the garden swayed in the wind, announcing the arrival of a new season. The scent of roses wafted gently through the air. "Don't worry, Katie. I'm here with you." Near the end of my night shift, I was gently holding the hand of my 7-year-old patient. In the dimly lit room of Boston General Hospital's pediatric cancer ward, only the rhythmic beeping of monitors broke the silence. Outside the window, the eastern sky was slowly beginning to lighten. "Doctor, I'm scared." Her faint voice tugged at my heart. Katie's condition had been deteriorating daily since entering the terminal phase. Her exhausted parents were resting in the nap room. The nurse had told me, she barely slept last night. "Hey, how about I tell you a story? About my precious baby?" Katie's eyes regained a little sparkle. Under her hair, lost to chemotherapy, a childlike smile peeked through. "How old is Lily now?" 6 months old. "Let's see, about the size of your doll." This morning she was trying to touch my face. My smartphone vibrates. It's Michael, my ex-husband, again. His third message this week. I ignore it and return to my conversation with Katie. "Aren't you sleepy, doctor?" "I'm fine. But it's time for your medicine, so let's rest a bit." While checking the morphine dosage, I thought about the difficult decisions I face every day. The frustration of being able to ease the pain but not save these young lives. Still, I have to give my all for the patients in front of me. 3 a.m. When I finally got home, Mrs. Wilson, the babysitter, greeted me at the entrance. The warm light spilling into the apartment hallway slightly soothed my weary heart. "Welcome home, Dr. Rachel. Lily finished nursing 30 minutes ago and is sleeping soundly. We played in the park this evening, and she laughed so much. Mrs. Wilson, thank you so much. Staying this late." Mrs. Wilson, in her 60s, has been supporting me like a real mother since my divorce troubles. She always willingly agreed to stay overnight when I had night shifts. Oh my, the refrigerator is empty again. I'll stop by the supermarket tomorrow morning. And the laundry too, I'll take care of it. I'm causing you so much trouble. What are you saying? Being able to help someone like this is my joy. In the living room, Lily's toys were neatly arranged, and my work clothes for tomorrow were ironed. Next to the car seat, changes of clothes and baby food for daycare tomorrow were all prepared. Looking at my daughter's sleeping face in bed, events from 2 years ago flashed through my mind like a film reel. The discovery of my husband's affair, Michael, an executive at Medifarm, with his 27-year-old secretary, Jessica Wells. Then the heart-wrenching custody battle. 7 months pregnant at the time, I somehow managed to get through the crisis with support from the hospital. But Michael's harassment continues even now. Child support payments are often late, and anonymous accounts keep posting malicious comments on social media. Still, I've endured it all for Lily. Rachel, you need to take a break too. Yesterday, when I told Mrs. Wilson about my vacation plans, she encouraged me with those words. Lily needs her mommy to smile too. Don't worry, I'll watch the house, so go and enjoy yourself. Listening to my daughter's soft breathing, I savor this small happiness. Tomorrow is my first vacation in a while. I'll spend quality time with my daughter. Just as I thought that, my smartphone vibrated again. The sender displayed on the screen was Michael Peterson. My finger hesitated over whether to delete it, but unconsciously opened the message. Hope you have a nice trip. Those casual words sent a chill down my spine. How does he know about my vacation? I'm always watching. At the next message, I almost dropped my phone. 5 a.m., Boston Logan Airport. Fluorescent lights cast cold light in the still dark terminal. I was heading to the check-in counter, holding sleeping Lily. My daughter's warmth gradually eases last night's anxiety. Her small hand clutching her favorite daycare stuffed animal occasionally twitches. There's still plenty of time until boarding. The Hawaiian Airlines flight to Maui departs at 7 a.m. I walk slowly through the still quiet lobby. Hawaiian Airlines Flight 124, correct? The female staff member at the counter gives me a warm smile. Her name tag reads Sarah. Yes, Thompson, reservation number dash. Mrs. Thompson. Turning at the deep male voice, I saw 2 police officers standing there. Boston police uniforms. One was a gray-haired man in his 50s, the other a young officer in his early 30s. There was something cold in both their expressions. "We need to talk about the baby," the senior gray-haired officer announced in a stern tone. At his voice, Lily stirred slightly. She clutched her light blue daycare blanket even tighter. "What is this about?" Unable to hide my agitation, my voice drew the attention of surrounding passengers. A murmur spread through the early morning airport lobby. Sarah at the check-in counter watched anxiously. "You are under arrest for kidnapping this child." Those words drained the blood from my face. My heart pounded violently. Is this a nightmare? Reality? I couldn't tell the difference. Kidnapping? What are you talking about? This is my daughter. I have full custody. Mrs. Thompson, an emergency protection order has been issued by the court. Temporary custody has been transferred to the father, Mr. Peterson. The order was issued last night. The document the officer held out bore the Massachusetts court seal. Just as I tried to read it, Lily woke up and started crying. "It's okay. Mommy's here. There's nothing to worry about." As I tried to comfort my daughter, the young officer reached for my arm. His silver badge gleamed ominously. "The baby, please hand her to us. Don't touch her." My sudden shout drew a growing circle of onlookers. Businesspeople waiting for the first flights began pointing their smartphone cameras. In my panic, I desperately tried to reach for my phone. "Mrs. Thompson, stay where you are. We want to avoid any further disturbance." My hand froze at the officer's stern voice. Behind me at the check-in counter, Sarah appeared to be calling someone. That's when I heard familiar footsteps from the direction of the escalator. Michael, dressed in an expensive suit. His Italian leather shoes made cold clicking sounds. Perfectly styled hair, expensive watch. Dressed as if heading to an important business meeting. Next to him was Jessica, holding the latest iPhone. Wrapped in an Hermes scarf with perfect makeup. She was filming my confusion and distress as if live streaming to social media. "Rachel, why don't you understand? You need rest. You're overworking yourself." Michael approached with an exaggerated, concerned expression. His voice, which once held affection, now felt ice cold. This is your doing, isn't it?" "Why?" "I've allowed visitation rights, saying Lily needs her father's love too." Holding Lily tightly, I spoke with a trembling voice. Tears fell on my daughter's soft hair. "Doctor, she's clearly showing panic symptoms." The middle-aged man beside Michael, a lawyer in an expensive suit, told the police officers with fake concern. A gold badge from Anderson and Partners gleamed on his chest. "We suspect she has a sleeping pill dependency. Night shifts, parental neurosis, the child needs immediate protection for her safety." "That's a lie. Nothing like that, as a doctor, as a mother. At that moment, Lily burst into tears. My agitation had transmitted to my sensitive daughter. Her small body was trembling. "We'll take custody of the baby. Let's avoid any further confusion." As the officer reached out again, I instinctively pressed my smartphone's speed dial. Mrs. Wilson, help. At the airport. Lily is. Mrs. Thompson, further resistance will be grounds for arrest. As the officer's voice continued, airport security guards approached at a quick pace. 2 uniformed men were reporting the situation to headquarters via radio. What seems to be the problem? Security Officer Johnson here. As the security guard tried to assess the situation, Michael began explaining with a perfect gentleman's expression. Meanwhile, Jessica continued filming with her smartphone. She was clearly aiming to spread this on social media. Holding Lily with trembling hands, all I could do was wait for help. In the airport windows where the morning sun was beginning to rise, our mother-daughter reflection appeared lonely. The surrounding stares, camera flashes, the officer's intimidating attitude. Everything felt like a nightmare. But this was undeniably reality. Michael's revenge had finally come to this. Let me explain. Mr. Anderson, Michael's lawyer, stepped forward. Documents pulled from his expensive suit pocket gleamed faintly in the fluorescent light. Mrs. Thompson is suspected of severe sleeping pill dependency. Night shifts at the hospital, parental exhaustion, she's at her limit. As a doctor, I maintain appropriate health dash. Last month alone, she forgot daycare pickup 3 times after night shifts. We have reports from the daycare. Stunned by the sudden accusation, I lost my words. True, there had been confusion with shift changes. But 3 times. Plus, we received anonymous reports about concerns regarding the child's condition. Jessica added with a perfectly staged worried expression. At that moment, her smartphone gleamed at an unnatural angle, as if live streaming this scene to someone. Reports. Who? Rachel. Michael spoke in the voice that once held affection. But now I could tell that kindness was false. I recognize your talent. But you need rest now. Lily will be with me and Jessica dash. Be quiet. A strong voice suddenly rang out. Turning around, there stood Mrs. Wilson. Her usual gentle expression was gone, replaced by a stern gaze fixed on Michael. Glad you could come. Next to her was a woman in a smart suit. My lawyer, Sarah Mitchell. Mrs. Thompson, that protection order is forged. Sarah approached the police officers while taking out her tablet. Please check the Massachusetts court's digital timestamp. This order shows it was issued at 11 p.m. last night, but the court system closes at 9 p.m. Furthermore, this electronic signature. The police officer's expressions began to change. The senior officer was checking something on his radio. And Mrs. Wilson raised her voice. Problems with daycare pickup. I would never allow that. Every day, without fail, I. That's right. A young woman's voice from behind. Turning around, Sarah from the check-in counter approached with documents. I checked with the daycare. There are no records of any problems with Dr. Thompson's pickups. Rather, it's the father, Mr. Peterson, who canceled 3 scheduled visits without notice. Michael's expression tensed. Jessica hurriedly put away her smartphone and began backing away. Furthermore, Sarah Mitchell continued in a calm voice. The social media defamation campaign, all from IP addresses connected to Mr. Peterson, we have the evidence. This is Michael's voice began to tremble. His perfect gentleman's mask was slowly crumbling. The police officers must feel awful too, Mrs. Wilson stated in a stern tone. Using forged documents so early in the morning, surely Mr. Peterson's company's legal counsel must have said something convincing. The senior officer turned back to Michael. Now his gaze held anger. Mr. Peterson, we'll need you to come with us voluntarily for suspicion of document forgery. Wait! Jessica suddenly stepped forward. Her hands were trembling, and her perfect makeup was beginning to smear. I'll talk. I'll tell everything. She continued speaking. The social media harassment was my idea. I wanted attention, to become an influencer. Her confession caused a stir among the onlookers. But the document forgery was Michael's instruction. He asked Mr. Anderson to. As Michael raised his hand to strike her, security guards quickly restrained him, adding assault to the charges. Sarah appeared from the hallway and calmly stated, document forgery, suborning perjury, defamation, and now violent conduct at the airport. Behind the restrained Michael, Jessica was crying while taking out her phone. I'm sorry. I recorded everything. Michael's instructions, the details of the plan. Wells. Michael's scream echoed through the airport lobby. You traitor, you're just a. That's enough. The police officer put handcuffs on Michael. Michael Peterson, you're under arrest for document forgery, defamation, and attempted assault. You have the right to remain silent. As the rights were being read, I held Lily tightly. It's okay, it's all over now. Stroking my daughter's soft hair, tears of relief finally flowed. Rachel. Mrs. Wilson gently placed her hand on my shoulder. There's still time until your flight. Let's rest in the lounge. Sarah Mitchell approached and smiled warmly. Enjoy your week in Maui. I'll handle things here. From the back of the security room, Jessica's voice could be heard. And, about the social media posts, I'll post an apology to all followers. Thank you. I whispered softly. Watching Michael being taken away by police, I was enveloped by a strange sensation. Mrs. Wilson took out Lily's favorite stuffed animal from her bag. The security guard offered to escort us to the lounge. Sarah was clearly explaining the upcoming legal procedures. The chaotic morning was coming to an end, surrounded by a quiet circle of support. Boston District Court, 3 months after the verdict, on a clear autumn afternoon. This concludes the final hearing of Peterson v. Thompson custody case. The judge's gavel echoed in the courtroom. I squeezed the hand of my lawyer, Sarah Mitchell, sitting next to me. Full custody, increased child support, and compensation payments, all judgments were ruled in our favor. Rachel, congratulations. Sarah announced with a bright expression. Tears gleamed in her eyes. As we left the courtroom, the prosecutor approached. Regarding Mr. Peterson's sentencing, I have a report. Document forgery, defamation, and attempted assault at the airport. All charges were proven, and though suspended, a guilty verdict was confirmed. It seems MediFarm has also decided on disciplinary action. Disciplinary dismissal from the company. Permanent ban from the medical industry. Michael's ambitions were completely crushed. Rumor has it he started a real estate business in a small West Coast town. He and Jessica broke up, naturally. As for her, she deleted all her social media accounts and returned to her family home in Chicago. Her dream of being an influencer crumbled easily. Your daughter's smile was the best evidence of all. Mrs. Wilson, holding Lily, said in the hallway. I saw the photos from your Hawaii trip, such wonderful mother-daughter time. Yes. After that chaotic morning, we headed to Maui as planned. Lily playing innocently on the white sand beach. Watching my daughter frolic in the waves gradually healed my heart's wounds. Dr. Rachel. Turning around, Dr. Green, my supervisor from the pediatric cancer ward, approached. The promotion is officially decided. We're expecting great things from you as Deputy Director of Pediatric Cancer Research. At the new workplace, reforms to the night shift system were also approved. Consideration for doctors raising children, my experience was taking concrete form. The new home I bought a year ago is close to both the hospital and daycare. From the large windows, you can see the sunset over the Charles River. Sorry to keep you waiting. Mrs. Wilson appeared carrying a large pot. Getting ready for the Christmas party, bit by bit. Sarah was at the entrance with a gift, and Dr. Green said he'd be coming soon. Are we late? Voices of nurse colleagues from the hallway. Hospital staff members were gathering one after another. The first party in our new home. Warm light envelopes the entire room. Lily laughs innocently. Her gestures slightly resemble Michael's. But that doesn't bother me anymore. She is her own person, and she is our future. Outside the window, the first snow began to fall. Dr. Rachel. Mrs. Wilson calls from the kitchen. Come on, let's make them together. New memories. Taking my daughter's hand, I step into the circle of people I love. This is a new page in our story. Every ending is also a beginning. Good night, Emily. Maggie sighed inwardly as she kissed her daughter's forehead. 1 year after the divorce, her ex-husband's child support payments were consistently late, and her salary as a real estate agent barely maintained their lifestyle in this upscale neighborhood. Greenwich Middle School tuition, cheerleading expenses, and health insurance. Her stomach tightened every time she checked her bank balance. Mom, will you come watch my practice tomorrow? Emily's eyes sparkled with hope. But tomorrow, Maggie had an important meeting with a client. If she could close the deal on the luxury property, it might ease this month's finances. "I'm sorry, Emily. I have an important appointment with a client tomorrow." Seeing her daughter's face cloud over, Maggie's heart ached. She felt guilty for becoming a work-consumed mother since the divorce. That's when she met him. Stephen Mitchell was a buyer for one of the most exclusive properties Maggie was handling. From their first meeting, she was drawn to his gentle demeanor and intellectual air. His position as an IT company executive seemed to reflect his integrity. "Mrs. Walker, I heard you have a child," Stephen said with natural warmth during a property viewing. "Yes, I have a 10-year-old daughter. Actually, I love children. Our company even develops security software for child protection." The transaction progressed smoothly, and they began having occasional meals together. Stephen always showed interest in Emily, eagerly listening about her school life. "Your mother is truly remarkable," Stephen said softly one day while listening to Emily's stories. His kind gaze made Maggie's heart flutter. The proposal came 3 months after the deal closed. "Please, both of you become my family." On a quiet night at an upscale restaurant, Maggie nodded without hesitation to Stephen's sincere words. The wedding was small but warm. Though Emily showed initial hesitation, she gradually opened up to Stephen's kindness as her stepfather. Their new home was the luxury residence Stephen had purchased. A spacious living room, comprehensive security system, and even a private room for Emily. "You won't have to worry about money anymore," Stephen said, embracing Maggie's shoulders. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect fresh start. Emily's grades remained stable, her cheerleading activities went well, and she seemed to be adjusting to life with her new father. Yet occasional concerns crossed Maggie's mind. Small sounds in the middle of the night. The bluish glow of computer light seeping from the study door. And her daughter's clouded expression, as if hiding something. Everything was too perfect. Was this happiness real? Maggie buried her face in her pillow, trying to shake off these vague anxieties. Tomorrow she would wake up early and make Emily's favorite pancakes. Surely that would bring back her smile. The first sign was the change in her daughter's appetite. "Emily, you need to eat your breakfast." The pancakes she usually devoured remained almost untouched. The morning sun streaming through the kitchen window illuminated Emily's pale cheeks. "I'm not hungry." Emily's voice was small, her gaze fixed on her plate. Across the table, Stephen looked up from his newspaper and spoke gently. "Don't force yourself. I'll teach you something special tonight." At those words, Emily's shoulders trembled slightly. The call from school came 2 weeks later. In the hallway of Greenwich Middle School, Emily's homeroom teacher, Mrs. Anderson, stopped Maggie. "Mrs. Walker, I'm concerned about Emily lately." The veteran teacher chose her words carefully. "She's been missing cheerleading practice. And she seems distracted during class. She's especially reluctant to enter the locker room." Anxiety weighed heavily on Maggie's chest. That night, Maggie knocked on her daughter's bedroom door. The pale pink curtains swayed in the evening breeze. Though cheerful smiling photos still adorned the walls, the room's atmosphere felt strangely heavy. "Emily, can we talk?" No response. When she gently opened the door, Emily was curled up on her bed. Her once proudly worn cheerleader uniform was stuffed in the back of the closet. "Has something been happening?" "Nothing." An immediate response. But her voice trembled. Her thin fingers gripped the sheets tightly. Did Dad say something?" For a moment, Emily's eyes widened with fear. The color drained from her face. "No. Mom, I can't." She wouldn't say anything more. Her small body just kept trembling. From that night on, Maggie began secretly observing her daughter. Walking the hallway under the pretense of nighttime bathroom visits, listening intently. Sometimes, the bluish computer light leaking from the study. And faint voices. Then came the decisive night. In the deep of night, Maggie woke to a sound. The clock showed 2 a.m. Bluish light spilled into the hallway. Her daughter's small footsteps headed toward Stephen's study. Heart pounding, Maggie followed. Walking the dark hallway, muffling her footsteps on the carpet. "No. I'm scared." Faint sobbing could be heard. "A promise is a promise, right? It's for your mother's sake, isn't it?" Stephen's low voice. Then the sound of a lock turning. Maggie's heart began racing. An icy premonition ran through her entire body. "Emily. What's wrong?" "It's late." No answer. Instead, her daughter's trembling voice from beyond the door. "No. I don't want to anymore." Maggie desperately turned the doorknob. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "What's going on? Open up." The door remained firmly locked. From inside came the sound of keyboard typing. Multiple monitors starting up. And her daughter's suppressed sobbing. Maggie's hand clutched her cell phone. The numbers 911 on the screen appeared like a saving light. "Please hurry. My daughter, my daughter." Her voice shook. As she explained, all the previous warning signs suddenly connected: her daughter's behavior changes, the strange nighttime meetings, why she avoided the locker room. Police sirens approached. Red and blue lights cut through the silence of the upscale neighborhood. With the officers' shouts came the sound of the door being broken down. As wood splinters flew, armed officers rushed in. What they found were multiple computer screens. They displayed the school locker room, the cheerleaders, and Emily trembling before them, holding a small camera in her hands. Maggie embraced her daughter. Emily's body was ice cold and shaking uncontrollably. From that small frame, waves of fear and sadness that had been suppressed now poured out. "It's okay now. Mama will protect you. I'll protect you no matter what." In her embracing arms, Emily broke down sobbing violently. Her tears soaked Maggie's pajamas. In the corner of the room, Stephen was being handcuffed. His expression no longer held any trace of the kind stepfather. Instead, There was only icy cruelty and the desperation of a trapped beast. The interrogation room at Greenwich Police Station was filled with the impersonal light of fluorescent bulbs. "Emily, don't be scared. Mama's right here." Maggie held her daughter's small hand tightly as she listened to the female detective's questions. Detective Sarah Martinez, a veteran investigator with warm Latin features. "Emily, when did this start?" Martinez's voice carried the gentleness of a mother speaking to her child. "A little before Christmas." Emily's voice trembled. "Stephen. Dad told me to put cameras in the cheerleaders' locker room. I said no at first. But..." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "He said he'd fire Mom. That we'd have nowhere to live." Maggie felt like her chest would collapse. Her daughter had endured such terror to protect her. In the next room, another interrogation was taking place. "Mr. Mitchell, aren't there other victims?" To the detective's question, Stephen showed a faint smile. His expression no longer showed any attempt to maintain appearances. "I want my lawyer." Those were his first and last words. However, the evidence spoke eloquently. Massive amounts of data were discovered on the seized computers. Not just Greenwich Middle School. Footage from locker rooms at multiple schools across Connecticut. And records of selling them on dark websites. So far, we've confirmed similar methods at 5 schools, Detective Martinez reported with a tired expression. He deliberately approached single-mother households in financial difficulty. After marriage, he forced the children to install cameras. He threatened economic sanctions against any mother and child who resisted. The investigation revealed even more shocking facts. Stephen's company position was fabricated. While he was indeed an IT company executive, in reality, he operated dark websites. His background in developing security software for child protection was all lies. "We found no prior convictions." Detective Martinez looked down at her documents. "However, this is likely because he was extremely careful about destroying evidence. There are likely similar victims in other states." At a cafe near Greenwich Library, Maggie met with other victims' parents. All were mothers with similar experiences. "We also had financial difficulties. Even though my daughter seemed anxious, I couldn't notice." Maggie nodded firmly at each confession. It's easy to blame oneself. But now, they had to look forward. "Let's all attend the trial together." Everyone agreed to Maggie's proposal. The investigation continued. Police found crucial evidence in Stephen's office as well. His IT company colleagues were shocked to learn his true nature. "Mr. Mitchell may have used company systems," came the report from investigation headquarters. The cybercrime unit joined the investigation. Emily began psychological counseling. "You did nothing wrong." She gradually began to accept the counselor's words. However, overcoming trauma isn't easy. She often wakes from nightmares. At such times, Maggie sleeps in her daughter's room. Greenwich Middle School promised full cooperation. "Mrs. Walker will provide all possible support as a school." The principal's words contained deep regret and determination. Security system review, resident counselors, and protection of victims' privacy. Specific measures were implemented one after another. Emily, come back to the cheerleading squad. Everyone's waiting. Emily nodded slightly at the advisor's words. Analysis of the evidence continued to reveal shocking facts. Stephen had planned meticulously before approaching mothers and children. He chose Greenwich's upscale neighborhood believing the wealthy environment would provide perfect camouflage. And the most cruel fact: he had been recording everything since their wedding day. He continued filming them playing the role of a happy family like it was some kind of show. How many more children could such a man? Maggie whispered with a trembling voice before the evidence. Detective Martinez nodded silently. A week after the incident, Maggie caught her breath opening the newspaper. IT executive arrested in Greenwich Middle School voyeurism case. Her daughter's school name danced across the front page headline. While the article accurately reported the facts, it avoided specific details out of consideration for underage victims. However, the imagination of the upscale neighborhood's residents more than filled in the gaps. That's their daughter. Even though they lived in such a nice house. Didn't the mother notice? The looks followed them at Whole Foods Market and Bruce Park. Even if without malice, just sympathy, it deepened the wounds of mother and child. Emily began refusing to go to school. Mom, I don't want to go to school. Mid-morning preparations, she throws off her uniform. Pleading desperately with tears in her eyes. Greenwich Middle School was being as considerate as possible. Protecting victims' privacy, banning media entry, and strengthening counseling support. Still, the rumors wouldn't stop. Mrs. Walker, we understand your child's continued absence. However, meeting with the vice principal. Though hedging his words, his intent was clear. If the absences continued, it could affect her advancement to the next grade. Meanwhile, support was also being extended. Sarah Thompson, a lawyer introduced by Detective Martinez, established the Victims Association. You are victims. And brave whistleblowers too. At the first meeting in her office, mothers and children in similar situations gathered. Couldn't we use our experiences to prevent future victims? One mother's suggestion moved everyone's hearts. Regular meetings began in St. Mary's Church's meeting room. There, they shared their worries, sometimes cried, and gradually began looking forward. Emily, would you tell me about cheerleading? One day, a cheerleading advisor from another school who participated in the Victims Association gently approached Emily. Would you like to watch practice at our school? We can make special arrangements so no one will notice. Those words marked the beginning of change. Practice in a new environment. Among unfamiliar faces, Emily slowly but surely began regaining her former sparkle. Mom, I want to dance again. In the evening twilight, Emily's cheeks were flushed for the first time in a long while. Support came from unexpected directions. Mrs. Walker, we need to talk. The IT company's legal director visited a month after the incident. Former employee Mitchell's actions potentially utilized company systems. We take this responsibility very seriously as a company. A settlement offer. And more importantly, a proposal. Would you help us launch a victim support program? The company planned to support cybercrime victims, especially minors and their families. They wanted to use Maggie's experience in crime prevention education. However, not everything went smoothly. When the trial began, new challenges awaited. The defendant skillfully manipulated the victim's psychology. The prosecutor's opening statement. As details of the case were revealed in court, wounds were reopened. Didn't you invite it? Stephen's lawyer's aggressive cross-examination. Emily trembled on the witness stand but answered firmly. No. I was scared. But I had to protect Mom. At those words, the courtroom fell silent. Between trial dates, mother and child sought a new life. They decided to sell the Greenwich luxury home. Though it might hold precious memories, even more painful ones were ingrained there. While searching for a new property, Maggie reflected on her experience as a real estate agent. I wonder if we can use our experience to ensure safer transactions. The concept of a training program for fellow agents gradually took shape. As autumn deepened and trees began changing color. Mom, I've decided, Emily quietly began during dinner. I want to go back to Greenwich Middle School. There was no hesitation in her eyes anymore. The cheerleading squad is waiting. And, though stumbling slightly over her words, she continued. By going back, maybe I can give courage to others who are scared to speak up. Maggie embraced her daughter. Warm tears rolled down her cheeks. That night, they talked for a long time. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be smooth. But they wouldn't look back anymore. Let's go to school tomorrow. Outside the window, the full moon cast a gentle light. One January day at the Connecticut Supreme Court. Defendant Stephen Mitchell, I sentence you to 20 years in prison. As the judge's voice echoed through the courtroom, a faint sigh of relief escaped from the gallery. Furthermore, I order 80% of the defendant's assets be allocated to victim compensation. Stephen's expression remained emotionless until the end. Only the mask of the ideal stepfather had completely fallen away, leaving nothing but cold hostility in his eyes. It's over now. On the drive home, Maggie gripped the steering wheel tightly. Beside her, Emily quietly gazed out the window. But this wasn't the end. A week after the sentencing, shocking news arrived. Mitchell indicted in Ohio as well. A call from Detective Martinez. Multiple victims with similar methods confirmed. Investigation is also progressing in Pennsylvania. The full extent of the damage was still unknown. Meanwhile, Greenwich was steadily changing. Greenwich Middle School completely overhauled its security system. Strict regulations on surveillance camera placement, restrictions on outside visitors, and above all, a new system focusing on student psychological care was established. We've learned much from Mrs. Walker's experience. The principal spoke sincerely at the new semester's parent meeting. Children's safety is our top priority. True to those words, changes were visibly implemented. New security systems were installed in locker rooms, with staff constantly stationed at entrances. Cheerleading practice times were revised, requiring multiple teachers to be present. Welcome back, Emily. The cheerleading squad warmly welcomed Emily back. We've been waiting for you. A tearful reunion. The former discomfort was gone. Maggie's activities also entered a new phase. The victim support program, started in cooperation with the IT company, received an unexpected response. After hearing your story, ma'am, I found the courage to speak up. The voice on the other end of the phone trembled. People who had suffered similar abuse but couldn't tell anyone kept reaching out. We don't want our experience to be in vain. The Victims Association was officially recognized as a nonprofit organization. Safe Family Network. The name embodied their strong determination to protect families. Their activities were diverse. Support for single-mother households in financial difficulty. Creating safety guidelines for real estate transactions. Training programs for school personnel. And above all, emotional care for victims. It's not your fault. In the counseling room, someone's tears become someone else's courage every day. The Greenwich luxury home was sold to a new family. Be happy here. Maggie sincerely wished as she handed over the keys. The mother and daughter's new home was in a quiet residential area on the opposite side of town. A cozy house surrounded by white picket fences. There's even a small garden in the backyard. Mom, can I plant sunflowers? Emily suggested, inspired by the spring weather. Of course. While tilling the soil, Maggie thought. Sad memories never completely disappear. But they surely have the strength to overcome them. Every Sunday, mother and daughter attend Mass at St. Mary's Church. God gives us not only trials but also the strength to overcome them. The pastor's words touched their hearts. Spring 2025. Emily stood on stage at Greenwich Middle School's graduation ceremony. We can turn fear into courage. The audience fell silent at her words as student representative. And that courage will surely become someone's light. After the ceremony, mother and daughter took a photo in front of their newly planted sunflowers. The yellow flowers looking straight up at the sky seemed like symbols of hope. Mom, we'll be okay, right? Yes, we will. A gentle breeze softly caressed their hair. The Safe Family Network's phone is ringing again today. It surely carries someone's anxiety and someone's hope. Maggie picks up the receiver. Hello, Safe Family Network. Let's think through any concerns together. Someone sighs deeply on the other end. While listening to that voice, Maggie makes a vow. To turn this experience into light for someone else. And to ensure this region never experiences the same sadness again. Outside the window, sunflowers swayed in the wind of a new season.